because the people in charge, the posh, privileged people in charge, were acting like Charlie Sheen. I mean, really rubbing salt in the wound.
Keir Starmer might just lose everything after a bombshell secret was exposed, and of all people, it's Ricky Gervais doing the honours. Yes, the same Ricky who can numb Hollywood's elite with one-liners and probably make Buckingham Palace reconsider hosting any more public events. Now, he's turned his savage wit toward the biggest political target of the moment, Starmer, who's quickly solidifying his status as Britain's most laughable punchline.
Can you guarantee that under your leadership, the 2019 Labour commitments to nationalise water, energy, rail, the Royal Mail, they'll all be in Labour's next election manifesto?
I've made that commitment.
Will you nationalise the big six energy companies, yes or no?
No.
And what's this secret, you ask? Well, apparently, it's a skeleton so massive and embarrassing that Starmer's closet might need planning permission to hold it. It's a mess he's been quietly sweeping under the rug since before he even dreamed of politics, and thanks to Ricky's revelations, things are about to go from mildly awkward to absolute disaster for Starmer.
Election manifesto.
I've made that commitment.
Will you nationalise the big six energy companies, yes or no?
No.
No, you want...
We have to make the case for freedom of movement.
And if you don't know, let me tell you, Ricky Gervais isn't known for sugarcoating his opinions. This guy hands out brutal truths like party favours. Seriously, Gervais has mastered the art of exposing hypocrisy with the precision of a surgeon and the wit of, well, himself. This time, he's zeroed in on Starmer, ripping into the Labour leader with all the ferocity of a stand-up routine on steroids. Gervais' punchlines. They cut deep, revealing ugly truths about Starmer's leadership that might just send Labour's future swirling down the political drain. Starmer's been trying to cruise along in cautious political waters, hoping no one would notice the mess he's dragging behind him. But here comes Gervais, spotlight in hand, making sure everyone sees just how tangled that mess really is. He's called out the glaring contradictions, the half-hearted promises, and the evasions so blatant that even Starmer's most loyal supporters have started to squirm. And this isn't just juicy political gossip, it's the kind of exposure that raises serious questions about whether Starmer can actually be trusted, whether he's even fit to tackle the problems facing everyday people.
1,000 prisoners will be released early today as part of the government's efforts to free up space in jails in England and in Wales. 1,700 inmates were freed last month after warnings that as few as 80 prison places were available. Currently, there are just over 2,000 free spaces, but that number is expected to reach critical capacity again by next summer.
And then there's Starmer's handling of immigration, or rather, his complete lack of it. Gervais has turned his sharp focus to this topic, making it clear that Starmer's approach doesn't just fall short, it's a masterclass in hypocrisy. While trying to straddle both sides of the debate, Starmer's ended up alienating everyone, coming off as indecisive and out of touch. Gervais doesn't hold back, blasting him for spouting vague reassurances without delivering any concrete solutions. It's a damning portrait of a leader who talks a big game but ultimately folds like a paper map in a rainstorm. But the real bombshell? Gervais ties Starmer's failures directly to figures like Tommy Robinson, the ever-controversial agitator who has repeatedly sounded alarms about social unrest and immigration. Gervais connects the dots, arguing that while Robinson's concerns have always been a powder keg of controversy, Starmer's silence in addressing these warnings has only made things worse. Instead of stepping up or even acknowledging the growing unrest, Starmer's remained conspicuously quiet, as if hoping the whole issue would just disappear. It's a silence that speaks volumes, and Gervais skewers him for it, suggesting that by avoiding these tough topics, Starmer's just letting a divided and frustrated public simmer dangerously close to boiling over.
I think it's a disastrous budget. I think it'll do the country untold harm. To start off with, we didn't know it was coming, this massive 40 billion quid, because Starmer and Rachel Reeves lied to the electorate. They didn't tell them. In the manifesto, there is no mention whatsoever of half of these increases that they've introduced right out of the blue. If the electorate had known £40 billion worth of new taxes was required, I bet you the election would have been much, much closer.
And if you thought things couldn't get worse, let's talk about the recent anti-immigration riots. These events should have been a flashing neon sign that said urgent, but Starmer, true to form, looked the other way. Gervais points out how this crisis should have been a wake-up call, yet Starmer seemed utterly clueless, as if oblivious to the sheer rage and desperation spilling onto the streets. It's not just that he didn't act with urgency, he seemed to lack even the basic awareness needed to address the pain and frustration tearing through communities. Gervais is ruthless here, painting Starmer as a leader so distracted or disconnected that he's practically writing his own legacy as the guy who let things fall apart. This negligence has real ugly consequences. Public anger is snowballing, and Gervais makes sure to underline the mounting sense of betrayal among ordinary people. They feel abandoned, their voices unheard, and their struggles ignored. Starmer, once seen as a beacon of hope, now risks being remembered as just another out-of-touch politician peddling empty promises. People are sick of it. They're tired of leaders who only pretend to listen while the country teeters on the brink of deeper societal divisions.
A typical Labour budget: borrow, tax, spend. 27 million people work in the private sector. They have gone in there and taken an enormous amount of money out of the private sector, which is the sector which produces all the growth and all the profit in our community, and they've transferred it to 5.5 million people in the public sector.
Ricky Gervais has a way of cutting through political nonsense with all the subtlety of a chainsaw, and his take on Keir Starmer's economic strategy, let's just say it's not flattering. Gervais isn't serving up jokes here, he's dropping truth bombs, and they're hard to ignore. First off, there's that jaw-dropping £40 billion in surprise taxes that Labour decided to hit the nation with. Yep, that's real money we're talking about, not some made-up number, and it's not like voters saw this coming either. Before the election, Starmer was all smiles and vague promises, conveniently leaving out the part about raiding people's wallets. Now, Gervais is calling out the deception, and it's got everyone wondering, would Labour have secured as much support if they'd been upfront about the massive tax hikes? Spoiler alert, probably not. The betrayal is especially bitter for private sector workers. That's 27 million people, by the way, who now feel like they've been blindsided by Starmer's policies. Instead of boosting productivity or fostering innovation, these tax hikes threaten to stifle the very engine of the UK's economy.
I wonder how many of us will come out in one piece as this new regime taxes us to oblivion, assaults business with red tape and extra costs, sends millionaire wealth creators abroad, taxes elite education, allows unchecked wokery in our public institutions.
Gervais paints a grim picture. Money is being siphoned out of businesses that actually generate jobs and funneled into a bloated system that seems more interested in bureaucracy than progress. It's a strategy that, according to Gervais, could leave Britain's economic health in serious jeopardy. Sarcastic or not, he's making a point. This isn't just bad politics, it's economic malpractice. And oh boy, are people mad. This isn't the usual political grumbling you hear from frustrated citizens. No, it's a full-blown wave of outrage. Voters feel hoodwinked, having bought into Starmer's vision of a fairer, more prosperous economy, only to wake up to crushing taxes and empty promises. The shock is palpable, and the sense of betrayal cuts deep. Labour was supposed to be the party that had the working classes back, but now people are questioning if Starmer even knows what Labour stands for anymore.
Funding system, policing system, government system, and British people are not put first. We're treated like second-class citizens. We're the people paying taxes. We're the people who built this country. It's our forefathers that died and sacrificed for this country, and they don't care. They're treating us terribly, so we've been betrayed.
Gervais has made sure everyone sees this for what it is, a breach of trust so severe that it's starting to redefine what voters expect, or rather don't expect, from their leaders. And then there's the real kicker. Gervais shines a harsh spotlight on how Starmer's economic strategy seems to favour a select few. Instead of helping those struggling the most, Labour's policies appear to funnel resources into public sector pet projects and administrative bloat. Gervais hints that there might be a deeper strategy at play, one that caters to special interests while leaving regular folks out to dry. It's a bleak assessment, but it makes you wonder, is this economic plan really about fairness, or is it just a smoke and mirrors act to keep the privileged comfortable?
What a gathering. What a sight. How proud we can all be. I wish I was there with you today. You are showing the establishment that you don't fear them. You're willing to take a stand to show all of your beautiful faces. For years, those in power have worked hard to hide the truth about what they are doing to our country.
As if that weren't enough, Let's rewind to the great promise of nationalisation, Starmer's grand campaign pledge to take control of essential services like energy, water and railways. It was the sort of bold, sweeping idea that energised Labour supporters, giving hope that meaningful change was around the corner. Fast forward to post-election reality, and suddenly Starmer's enthusiasm for nationalisation seems to have evaporated. Now he's backpedalling faster than a cyclist down a hill, claiming that maybe nationalisation isn't the best move after all. To his base, this feels like a knife in the back, a U-turn so dizzying it's left supporters questioning whether Starmer has any real conviction.
1987, since Tony Blair was in Parliament, £500 billion has been spent on illegal immigrants. Yeah? This is where all our money is getting wasted.
Gervais doesn't pull punches here either. He openly wonders if corporate money might be whispering in Starmer's ear. Is Labour really fighting for the working class, or have they cozied up to wealthy donors who pull the strings? The accusation stings, and it's not hard to see why. If Labour, of all parties, is now pandering to corporate interests, then what hope is there for the average person? For a party that prides itself on championing the underdog, this corporate influence narrative is a tough one to shake. The result? Widespread distrust that's festering into genuine anger. The grassroots supporters who once rallied for Starmer are feeling duped, as though their faith was nothing more than a tool used to win votes. Gervais drives this point home. Starmer's wavering stances and economic U-turns have left people feeling used and betrayed. And this isn't just disappointment, it's a deep sense of resentment. Voters are waking up to the fact that their loyalty might have been wasted, and they're not staying quiet about it.